Who shot him?
Right there in the Jeep. She got a gun. She just shot him.
We should have went in there and everything. Confrontation. They shot that man. He had to shoot that man like that.
He has 2 adult children that they don't have a father anymore.
She was not sworn in. She did not wear a uniform. She had no right to stop anyone. Her name was Hannah Payne. Still, one choice turned an ordinary evening into a death scene. A stranger drove away. His name was Kenneth Herring. She followed. A moment passed where Hannah Payne could have turned back, and she did not. What happened next lasted seconds, but the impact stretched across years, families, and courtrooms. Hannah Payne went home in handcuffs. Kenneth Herring never went home at all. Later, emotions filled the room. Tears fell. Words like fear, mistake, and mercy were spoken out loud, but the loudest thing in the room was what was missing. Kenneth Herring's voice, cut short, unable to explain, unable to defend itself. This story is not just about a gun or a road or a bad decision. It is about power taken without permission. It is about who gets the benefit of doubt and who does not. It is about how fast fear turns into force and how slow justice feels after. And sitting beneath every detail is a question no one can avoid, no matter how uncomfortable it sounds. If Hannah Payne and Kenneth Herring had switched places, would this story feel the same? Or would the ending have already been decided? Hannah Payne was a young woman living in Georgia, going about an ordinary evening that later became the center of a deadly story. She was not a police officer, not a security guard, and not trained to stop crimes. She had no badge, no authority, and no special role on the road that day. She was simply a private citizen driving her Jeep, with a legal gun on her hip, and a belief that she needed to step in when she saw something go wrong. At the time of the incident, she was 21 years old. People who knew her described her as a regular working young adult with friends and coworkers, not someone known for violence. Nothing in her past suggested she would become part of a fatal shooting. Yet, one decision, made in minutes, placed her directly in the path of a stranger and changed 2 families forever. On the evening of May 7th, 2019, traffic moved through a busy area in Clayton County, Georgia. At an intersection, 62-year-old Kenneth Herring ran a red light in his Dodge pickup truck and collided with a semi-truck. The crash was minor, but both vehicles were damaged. The drivers pulled over to wait for police. Hannah Payne was not involved in the crash, but she saw it happen and stopped. Another witness also stopped, a corrections officer who worked in a prison infirmary. While waiting, Herring appeared confused and disoriented. His eyes looked unusual, and he moved strangely around his truck. The corrections officer believed Herring was in diabetic shock, not drunk. No police arrived for 15 to 20 minutes. During that wait, nothing violent happened. Then, Herring got back into his truck and drove away from the scene. When Herring left, no one had written down his license plate number. Hannah Payne noticed this and became worried. She believed Herring might cause another crash if he kept driving. She called 911 and told the dispatcher what was happening. The dispatcher clearly told her, multiple times, not to follow the truck and to stay safe. Payne ignored those instructions. She followed Herring in her Jeep, telling the dispatcher she was catching up to him. She insisted that she was not drunk and claimed Herring was. She believed she could help by getting his plate number or stopping him until police arrived. This was not a planned chase. It was a fast choice made on the road, with stress rising and fear building as cars moved around them.
Hey, can you get his tag number?
Hold on, he's driving away. It's a red Dodge Dakota. Give me 1 second, hold on, and I'm catching up to him right now.
Okay, ma'am, we actually do not want you to chase him. We just want you to be safe. And it's
I understand.
not to chase him.
I understand 100%. I'm just gonna get the tag number.
About 1 mile away from the crash, Herring stopped at another intersection in a turning lane. This was where everything exploded into violence. Witnesses later said Payne sped ahead and cut off Herring's truck, forcing him to stop. She jumped out of her Jeep and rushed toward his driver's window. Traffic was loud and the road was busy. Words were exchanged, but no calm conversation happened. Witnesses described Payne as aggressive from the start. They said she hit Herring through the open window while yelling at him. Herring stayed inside his truck and did not get out. To people watching, he looked confused and scared. What began as concern on the roadside turned into a confrontation with no control.
Ma'am.
During the confrontation, Payne pulled out her 9mm handgun. Witnesses said she threatened to shoot Herring and pointed the gun into the vehicle. Some testified that she warned him twice before firing. Video recorded by a bystander showed Payne hitting Herring with one hand while holding the gun with the other. The camera angle did not clearly show who pulled the trigger, but it showed the gun inside the truck. A single shot was fired into Herring's abdomen. He was unarmed. There were no weapons found on him. Blood quickly filled the cab of the truck as traffic continued to pass by. The sound of the gunshot ended the struggle instantly.
Ma'am!
Yes.
Ma'am! He just pulled the trigger of my gun in my hand while he was...
Ma'am,
I need to put
you
it
were
back
not
in the
supposed to
house.
follow him.
He hit my car!
Police arrived at the scene around 6:20 p.m. after receiving the emergency call. They found Kenneth Herring still seated in the driver's seat, badly wounded and barely responsive. He was rushed to the hospital, but died less than an hour later. An autopsy later confirmed he had no drugs or alcohol in his system. His family said he was diabetic and believed he was trying to get medical help when he left the crash scene. Investigators studied the location, the video, the witness statements, and the 911 recordings. The evidence showed Payne had followed Herring against instructions, stopped his vehicle, and confronted him with a gun. The case quickly shifted from a traffic issue to a homicide investigation. Detectives pieced together the timeline using dispatch audio, witness videos, and physical evidence. The 911 call showed Payne was warned not to chase Herring. Witness accounts described her blocking his truck and initiating physical contact. The video supported those statements. The gun was legally owned by Payne, but its use was central to the case. Investigators focused on whether Payne had the right to detain Herring and whether deadly force was justified. Georgia law allows citizens' arrest only under strict conditions, and police determined those conditions were not met. Kenneth Herring was not threatening her with a weapon, and he had not committed a violent crime in her presence. Each piece of evidence narrowed the focus onto Payne's actions in those final minutes.
Who got shot? Who shot him?
Right there in the Jeep. She got a gun. She just shot him.
I don't have my finger on the trigger.
Cause you gave me other guns in the car.
No, I don't.
Man, she reached in the window and everything. Confrontation. They shot that man. He had to shoot that man like that.
Hannah Payne was arrested after investigators finished reviewing the video, witness statements, and the 911 call. She was taken into custody and booked into jail. No longer a witness or helper, but the main suspect in a killing. The charge was not small or unclear. She was accused of murder for shooting Kenneth Herring while trying to stop him on the road. From that moment, her life was controlled by locked doors, court dates, and legal rules. Kenneth Herring's family moved into grief while watching the case grow larger than a traffic stop. News spread fast, and the story reached people far outside Clayton County. Prosecutors did not file one simple charge. They filed many. Hannah Payne was charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and 3 counts of possessing a firearm during a crime. Each charge carried heavy weight and serious time. Malice murder meant the state believed the killing was intentional. Felony murder meant the death happened while another serious crime was taking place. False imprisonment focused on stopping Herring against his will. The gun charges focused on using a weapon during those acts. Payne now faced the possibility of spending the rest of her life in prison. When the trial began, the courtroom filled with lawyers, family members, cameras, and tension. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of a young woman who decided to play police and used deadly force when she had no right to do so. They showed the video, played the 911 call, and brought in witnesses who described Payne blocking the truck, hitting Herring, and pulling the gun. The defense pushed a different story. They said Payne feared for her life and believed Herring was drunk and dangerous. They argued that she never planned to shoot anyone and that the gun fired during a struggle. One short video became central to the case. A bystander recorded the moment Payne stood at Herring's window. The footage showed her arm moving inside the truck while holding the gun. It showed her hitting him with her free hand. The sound of the shot was not clear, but the result was. Prosecutors told jurors that the video showed control and aggression, not fear. The defense said the video did not show who pulled the trigger. Jurors watched the clip again and again, knowing the answer they reached would change lives forever. Hannah Payne chose to testify in her own defense, a risky move in any murder trial. She told jurors she believed Herring was drunk and dangerous. She said a corrections officer at the crash scene made her think that following Herring was the right thing to do. She admitted pulling the gun, but said she never meant to fire it. She told the jury that Herring grabbed her shirt and wrist, pulled her toward the truck, and reached inside his vehicle. She said she feared she was about to be killed. According to her, the gun fired when Herring grabbed it during the struggle. Prosecutors challenged every part of her story. They reminded jurors that Herring had no alcohol or drugs in his system. They pointed out that the 911 dispatcher told Payne 4 times not to follow him. They stressed that Herring never got out of his truck and never showed a weapon. They argued that fear did not explain chasing a stranger, blocking his vehicle, and pulling a gun. In closing arguments, the state said traffic mistakes do not carry the death penalty, and that Payne chose violence when she could have driven away. After closing arguments, the jury went into deliberations. The weight was heavy for both families. Kenneth Herring's siblings sat together, holding memories of a brother who would never come home. Hannah Payne waited knowing every charge could mean decades or life behind bars. When the jury returned, their decision was clear. Hannah Payne was found guilty on all counts: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, all 3 firearm charges. The verdict ended any debate about self-defense in the eyes of the law. As the verdict was read, Payne broke down crying in court. Her family watched as deputies stood close by. Kenneth Herring's family felt relief mixed with pain. Justice did not bring their brother back, but the truth had been spoken out loud. The courtroom was silent except for sobs and quiet breaths. The case moved into its final phase, sentencing, where the judge alone would decide how many years Hannah Payne would spend in prison.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 2, as to the offense of felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 3, as to the offense of aggravated assault, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. With regard to count 4, as the offense of felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
On Friday morning, Hannah Payne walked into court wearing a green prison uniform and handcuffs. She was now 24 years old. The judge listened as both sides spoke one last time. Prosecutors asked for life without parole, saying the damage was permanent and deadly. The defense asked for mercy, saying Payne never meant to kill anyone and was young when the crime happened. The room was heavy with emotion as family members prepared to speak directly to the judge. Kenneth Herring's sisters took the stand one by one. They spoke about holidays that would never be the same. They talked about grandchildren who would grow up without their grandfather. One sister said she watched Payne leave the courtroom crying and said it reminded her of the moment her brother's casket was closed forever. She said she could never call him again or hear his voice. She asked the judge to give Payne the same thing Herring received, a life with no chance to return. A family friend and co-worker of Hannah Payne also spoke. She asked the judge to see Payne as a human being, not only as a defendant. She said Payne's heart was broken and that she never wanted harm to come to anyone. She spoke about Payne's past and asked the court to believe this was a tragic mistake, not an evil plan. Hannah Payne did not speak. Her parents did not speak. She cried quietly while others spoke for her. Judge Jules Scott listened to every word. Then she delivered the sentence. Hannah Payne was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole for the murder of Kenneth Herring. She also received 8 years for false imprisonment and 5 years for possession of a firearm, to be served one after another. Under Georgia law, she cannot apply for parole until she serves at least 30 years, plus the extra 13 years added by the judge. That means 43 years, before any chance of release. If she lives that long, she will be 68 years old. The case did not end when the gavel fell. Both families began receiving threats online. Some messages accused the case of being about race, since Payne is white and Herring was black. The district attorney publicly asked people to stop. She said race was not the reason for the murder and warned that anyone making threats would be investigated and charged. Police began looking into the messages, while victim advocates worked with Herring's family to keep them safe. Prosecutors said the sentence was justice, even though nothing could fix the loss. They said that even with parole as a possibility, 43 years in prison means Payne's best years are gone. Her memories will be of cells, counts, and concrete walls. Kenneth Herring's family left the courtroom, knowing their brother's name was finally defended in law. Hannah Payne left knowing the road she followed that day now stretched into decades behind bars. This case leaves no clean ending. One decision erased one life and reshaped many others. The court gave its answer, but the questions it raised did not disappear. Hannah Payne will live with what she did. Kenneth Herring's family will live with what was taken from them. And the space between those two truths is where this story stays. Now, it's your turn. Do you think justice was served, or does this case still feel unfinished? Share your thoughts in the comments. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe and stay with us for more real cases that demand real conversations.